Warning: World Weary Podcasts occasionally discusses mature themes and uses colorful language.
Welcome to World Weary. I'm the British one, Violet Starr.
I'm the American one, Cassie Pale Walker.
Oh yeah. This podcast is about weird, strange, paranormal, extraordinary stuff, and today's episode is no exception because today we are talking about sea monsters. Arr. Oh yeah, sea monsters. I guess we'll just start by saying that I love the idea of sea serpents. I went through a phase when I was like 9 or 10 years old of just drawing sea serpents and like sea dragons all the time, like in my like school books, like any notepad, any bit of paper, I was just drawing like plesiosaurs and stuff. Yeah, I was
Have
really
you stolen
into the
my
idea
brain?
of them.
Like, I swear we have very similar weirdo-ness. It was giant squids for me.
Oh, ooh, that's a bit different.
Maybe that's what I'm
It's a
talking
bit
about today.
anime.
You don't know. No, not like that, no.
Yeah, I really, really wanted to believe in them when I was a kid, and like I would freak myself out in like swimming pools, or if we went to the beach, like if there was a big shadow or like a big bit of seaweed or something, like or a shadow in the bottom of the swimming pool, I would always imagine it was a sea serpent until I actually kind of scared myself in the water or like got out of the pool because I was so freaked out. And I even do it now to a degree, like if I'm at the coast, if I look out at the sea from like the beach or a cliff or something, my dearest wish is like I imagine that some giant like Loch Ness monster is gonna raise its head out of the water, or like a massive like shark like breach the waves and freak everyone out. That is what I dearly hope for every time I'm at the coast, because the ocean is super frightening.
Yeah.
I mean,
And very much still unexplored.
oh yeah. I mean, that's what's creepy about it. It's like the deep unknown. And like, I know you grew up near water, but
Peninsula,
but pretty much all my childhood, I've lived sort of inland as much as you can by British standards anyway.
Landlocked
like
by British
on
standards.
a tiny island, so you know.
I don't want to have to drive 40 minutes.
Yeah, you know, the most inland you can be is probably only like 2 hours drive to the beach.
Yeah.
But still, I haven't always been around water, so to me it's like extra crazy, I guess. And but my mum, she used to really like doing like sea fishing. Like they'd go out to a massive like rock beach and like cast off from the shore.
What hasn't your mom done?
Like into the sea looking for sea fish with those like huge long beach fishing rods for like going out beyond the waves. And I remember this tale she told me where years back she was like camping at the beach and like sea fishing like really late in the evening. It was basically nighttime, like dark, and she had to wade out to check the line, like maybe something was pulling on it or it was like tangled or whatever, and she had to get it back in. But she got, you know, a real freak out moment because this like big black thing was like looping and like spinning twisting around in the water near the line like a fucking eel or something. Like this black wormy thing like looping about in the water. So like, I don't know, even the little things in the sea are really scary. What's the scariest thing we have in the water around here? Do you remember when we've been swimming
when
at
that
the
local river got diseased? That was pretty scary.
I was in London when that happened, but apparently everyone got sick, right?
Anyone who was swimming there, and we had been planning on going to go swimming there, and we were like,
this was like last summer, right?
Yeah, summer.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the scariest thing I can think of. And maybe Louisiana crawfish that are invading the rivers here.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, you can eat them. People go out. I see people locally going out catching them.
They encourage it, and I keep asking people. I was like, it's good eatings. No one wants to go with me to get the Louisiana crawfish.
Yeah, I mean, the scariest thing here in, like, freshwater is probably pikes.
Oh, yeah. That is scary.
Big, spiky teeth fish. I think they're pretty safe, actually. I mean, the river that we go swimming, in the river there, I think they have pikes.
Yeah.
In fact, I think there's a sign saying, like, pike habitat. So that's, like, the scariest thing about dipping. I always try to be super brave when we go swimming in cold water places like that, because, like, all the dudes that we're with are all, like, a little bit scared to get in, and I just love storming past everyone and just, like, diving straight into the cold river while everyone else is scared.
Yeah.
But I do always think, oh god, what if I hit something in the water? What if my foot touches something slimy or strange or sharp feeling? Ugh.
Well, in Maryland, we got so many crabs and all sorts. So, like, I've had my toes pinched by crabs many a time.
No,
and that's the worst. It is really like,
So, my tale today is kind of about sea monster globsters.
What?
Okay,
Oh,
you're
God,
going to learn
I'm so
all about
excited.
it. So I'm going to start off with, I'll show you one of my favourite photographs of all time. It was in one of the, like, unsolved mysteries books I read when I was little. And it's literally, I believed in it so much that it's literally, like, burnt into my mind because I thought it was such an awesome photograph. So in 1977, this Japanese trawler called the Zuiyo Maru was fishing off of New Zealand, and it pulls in something huge and foul-smelling in its, like, trawler net. I'm going to show you a photo
Oh, God.
of what they hauled out of the sea.
Are you going to traumatize me? Oh, what is it?
What do you think it looks like?
It looks like a mermaid crossed with, I don't know, a dragon crossed with, I don't know, what is it? It looks like a skeksis, a bit of a skeksis, or, yeah, like a bit, you know, like those dinosaurs.
Like a plesiosaur type thing.
Yeah. But, like, mixed with a I mean,
like a seaweedy, like, yeah.
It looks gross. Look it up.
Yeah, we'll share some photos and stuff, maybe on Instagram or somewhere.
I would believe in mermaids if someone showed me that.
So yeah, I mean, it looks in these pictures like they caught a dead plesiosaur. Or some people think it looks kind of like a giant sea lion or like a massive turtle. I mean, there's lots of ideas about what it looks like. So these unidentified carcasses, or like organic masses, I suppose, that wash up or like get trawled up by boats, have got a special name, and they are known as globsters. So like a big unidentified carcass. So what the Zuiyo Maru hauled in was a globster.
Okay.
So the crew of the trawler are super amazed. Apparently, they all thought it could be an unknown sea creature, which is big because these are guys working on a trawler. They're out in the sea between, like, you know, here, in this case, they'd come from Japan out to the coast off New Zealand fishing. So these guys know, like, pretty much anything you're going to haul up in the nets. They're out on the sea all the time. And if they think they found an unknown sea creature, you know, that's kind of... You know, there's something to it, basically. However, even though that could have been very exciting that they found a creature unknown to man, Akira Tanaka, the captain of the trawler, he doesn't want to risk spoiling all the fish that they've caught.
Oh, no.
And this is a really heavy, super smelly, decomposing carcass. So he makes the decision that they can't keep hold of the carcass, and that he orders that they have to dump it back into the ocean. Luckily, though, the crew, they photographed it, they sketched it, they measured it, and they even took biological samples, like bits of like cartilage and skin and bits of like fin, to take back to experts in Japan for analysis, just in case it was something super rare. They said the carcass was like 10 meters long, it had about 1.5 meter long neck, 2 meter long tail, and 4 big reddish coloured fins.
Wow.
So, 2 Japanese scientists, Professor Tokyo Shikama and Dr. Fujiro Yasuda, they see the pictures that the crew has taken, and they agree that the creature is a plesiosaur or some other kind of prehistoric animal.
What? How have I not heard of this?
At the time, it caused a huge sensation. It was dubbed the New Nessie, and people were very excited because these 2 professors had agreed that it was a plesiosaur or some other kind of prehistoric animal. I think Brazil even put it on a postage stamp
Wow.
of like the day that like it was proved that dinosaurs still exist and all this sort of thing. And in Japan, it literally caused a plesiosaur craze.
Wow.
So
I
like
bet there
people were probably
plushies.
selling plesiosaur plushies, key rings, t-shirts, probably like plesiosaur flavored Kit Kats, like.
Yeah, because that's an
You know what
animal
Japan
that they
is like
think has
when they get a
survived
novelty thing.
history and the death of dinosaurs. So immediately it's going to be the biggest bald animal you've ever seen.
Exactly. So the trawler captain, though, Akira Tanaka, he must have been kicking himself for dumping the carcass back into the sea, because the shipping company that his trawler was a part of apparently ordered all of their boats to go back out to New Zealand and try and find what remained of the carcass.
No, there's no way.
You know, no way. Sadly, they had no luck at all. It probably like rotted all away by then. So as the news of this globster, this unidentified carcass, spread across the globe, other scientists were more skeptical about
ready to
the
troll.
new Nessie. They pointed out that it's really unlikely that a big old creature like a plesiosaur could still be kicking around in the sea. Firstly, because the environment has changed so much from the time of, you know, plesiosaurs. You know, the marine environment now wouldn't support big creatures like that. They needed to breathe air from the surface as well, so people find it very hard to believe that they would have been able to remain hidden as like plesiosaurs. In the 70s, still, a lot of people were holding out hope for it being an unknown species of animal, especially because a lot of people referred back to the discovery of the coelacanth fish, which, if you don't know, is a fish that was thought to have been extinct since the late Cretaceous period, which is like 66 million years ago. We only had fossils of it, and then in 1938 it gets discovered alive off of South Africa.
I think I've heard of this.
Yeah, it's super famous, so look that up, coelacanth fish. So people still had kind of a lot of hope back then that there were that there were living fossils still on the planet, that it was possible that, you know, creatures could remain unchanged, fairly unchanged for like millions of years. Exactly. So, what was the creature that the Zuiyomaru had caught? So, experts skeptical of the plesiosaur explanation that these two Japanese professors had been very quick to jump on. That's not to say that all Japanese academics believed that it was a plesiosaur, but two fairly prominent ones spoke out and said that they thought it was. So the skeptics urged people to, you know, resolve this mystery by look back into the history books for similar carcasses that have washed up on the planet. Here we go. 25th September 1808. The island of Stronsay in Orkney, Scotland.
Oh boy.
Following a big storm, the large, decomposing corpse of a sea creature washes ashore.
Oh god.
John Peace, a fisherman, spots a bunch of seabirds flocking around something big on these rocks off the southeast end of the island of Stronsay. John rows over on his boat to get a closer look, expecting to see maybe a whale carcass, but on arrival to the scene, he is faced with a sight he can't really comprehend: a huge serpent-like creature with a long neck like an eel and 6 legs. John's encounter with the carcass is also witnessed by another man called George Scherer, who was watching from the coast, and he was really keen to examine this carcass. But where the carcass was located out on these rocks out in the sea, it was basically inaccessible to anyone at that time. And this guy managed to like row out, but he couldn't get up on the rocks, probably too dangerous. Luckily, 10 days later, another big storm washes the carcass off the rocks and onto the beach. So George Scherer, who's the guy that watched this other guy row out to it, he examines the corpse, as well as 3 local guys, I think like a carpenter and like 2 farmers that lived on the island. They come and help measure the corpse. And George also takes what appears to be a bit of skull and some vertebrae from the carcass. They said it measured 55 feet long, which is like about 17 meters.
I was about to wonder why it hadn't fully decomposed in those 10 days or been eaten fully.
It's so massive.
Okay.
It's about 4 foot wide, and it had this huge long neck that's almost 15 feet long, and it appeared to be missing part of a tail. The flesh and contents of its stomach were red. It had 6 legs, which is very exotic and weird if you think about the sort of blueprint of most
it's like
animals.
a water dragon.
When they touched the skin, it was smooth one way and rough when stroked backwards. Its fins were edged with bristles, and it had this like big mane of bristles running down its back, and the witnesses said that the bristles actually glowed in the dark when they were wet. And they said the animal had a head that was like that of a sheep, with eyes bigger than a seal's. So here's a little sketch I'll show you of what they thought it looked like. Like a cute little six-legged...
It's like a sea brontosaurus.
Brontosaurus-y thing. So news of this mysterious giant sea creature carcass, aka the Stronze beast, spreads. It gets in the news, and a bunch of people are like really interested in having a look at it and examining it. However, because this carcass has been hanging around for almost 2 weeks now, you know, first it washed up on the rocks, and then it washed onto the beach, and that took like 10 days. I mean, I know Orkney is very cold, but it basically rotted away to nothing by that point. And being 1808 and out on this island in the Orkneys, there's not much anyone could do to like transport it or preserve it. 4 witnesses, which I think means George Sherrar and the other local men that help measure and examine the carcass, they have to go to Kirkwall, which is like the capital of Orkney. It's on the Orkney mainland. And there they have to swear to the magistrate that the information about the carcass is true. On hearing news of this mysterious specimen, Dr. John Barclay, a Scottish anatomist and a member of Edinburgh's Natural History Society, he travels to Orkney to look at what remains of the carcass, and he looks at the bits of cartilage that George Sherrar had salvaged, and also one of the creature's limbs.
Okay.
At the next meeting of the Natural History Society in Edinburgh, they decide that this is very possibly a newly discovered species of sea creature, and the Society's secretary gives the creature a Latin name, which I think is Halcydrus pontopidani, to honour an 18th century Danish-Norwegian bishop called Eric Pontoppidan, who was obsessed with sea serpents, and he collected loads of tales and sightings of sea monsters. So, how was your Latin, Cassie?
I'm gonna say it's like water dwelling monster popopidan.
Almost there, because my Latin is non-existent. So the name means Pontoppidan's water snake of the sea.
Oh, well, I was nowhere near. I'm not gonna...
You got the water part and the Pontoppidan bit.
I heard hydro.
So Dr. John Barclay, who went out and examined these remains, he publishes a paper on the creature with like diagrams and stuff, and it gets loads of attention. And of course, you know, because people are now speculating as to whether they may have discovered a new large sea animal. Everyone's very, very excited about this.
I'd be excited.
And Sir Everard Home, a prominent surgeon at the time, who would go on in just a few years' time to actually examine some of the first dinosaur fossils that are excavated in Britain, which, you know, is important to note. You know, at that time, fossils and scientific discoveries were very new and crazy and exciting. And, you know, it was 1812 when they when they identified these like big like dinosaur fossils down in Dorset. So this is just a few years before that. So this was very much like on trend. You know, people were very open-minded to the possibilities, and people were just figuring out dinosaurs. So it's not too far-fetched for people at the time to think that actually giant sea serpents were real. Yeah. Because people had heard so many myths about it, kind of these huge, strange monster-like creatures in other countries, like elephants and stuff. Yeah. And then it turns out they really are real, and people are able to start seeing elephants and things being toured around Europe. It wasn't, you know, too far a stone to throw to think that sea serpents were a real animal, actually. So Sir Everard Home, this surgeon, he is intrigued by the story of the Stronze beast, and he takes a look at the reports and the evidence. He looks at the vertebrae which have been salvaged from the carcass, and he compares them with the vertebrae of a basking shark, which are fairly common in Orkney. And he concludes that they are absolutely identical. Oh, wow. So the Stronze beast is simply explained as a decomposing basking shark. In 1941, 133 years after the Stronze beast appeared on the rocks of Stronze Island, something else weird washes up at Scapa Flow. So Scapa Flow is like a body of water in the Orkneys. Basically, it's kind of part of the sea, but it's sort of surrounded or like sheltered by loads of islands.
Oh, okay.
So it's kind of like a weird, like, inland sea between all these islands. And it's also supposedly cursed, which is, like, makes it a really cool, extra spooky place for weird creatures to wash up. So apparently it's cursed by a witch who, like, buried a thimble in the sand at a place called Nether Scapa, and until the thimble is found, it said that no more whales would be caught in the area, because that would have been one of the big things to hunt in the Orkneys. So anyway, at Scapa Flow, a big lobster washes up. It's 25 feet long, described as prehistoric in appearance, and it's dubbed Scaposaurus in the news. Someone, luckily, takes a bit of vertebrae from the carcass and sends it to the British Museum, who, just like Sir Everard Home, identify it as a piece of basking shark. Maybe they're all basking sharks. What about the globster that I mentioned at the beginning of my story today? The carcass that the Zuiyomaru trawled up. Well, the samples that the crew took from the globster before it was dumped back into the sea were analysed by a team of scientists at Tokyo University, including a biochemist called Dr. Shigeru Kimura, who identified a protein in the samples which is only found in sharks and rays. So the team of scientists there concluded it was the carcass of a really big shark. So why are people misinterpreting these basking shark carcasses as animals that don't really look like basking sharks? They've got long necks, small heads, they look like serpents or like plesiosaurs. Surely it should be pretty obvious to tell the difference, right? Well, here's what happens to the body of a basking shark as it decays.
No.
Because the shark's jaws are literally only connected with a tiny little bit of flesh, they drop off first, giving the appearance of a little skull and a really long stretched out neck.
Okay.
Now to the tail. So all those pictures had this like long serpent-like tail. Because only the upper half of the shark's tails contains spine, the lower part kind of rots away quickly, giving you this stringy, stretched out looking serpent tail effect. But the Stronsay beast had 6 legs and this like crazy mane of bristles, so how do you explain that? Well, apparently, when a basking shark's dorsal fin decomposes, you get left with these rays that look like a hairy mane. And apparently the 6 legs are just the remains of the lower fins of the shark.
Okay.
So all these 3 mysterious beasts were actually just basking sharks. Mystery solved. Or is it? So the average basking shark is under 26 feet long.
Yeah.
And the longest basking shark ever recorded, biggest specimen properly ever identified, was 40 feet long.
Wow.
And that was described as like a monster in its own right, an exceptional specimen.
Yeah.
That's not common at all. Even the biggest whale shark recorded, which is the world's biggest fish, was 41 feet long. The globster that the Zuiyomaru trawled up was 33 feet long, which fits the bill for a bigger than average basking shark. An exceptionally big basking shark, but still, you know, within the measurements of things we know. However, the Stronsay beast, the one that washed up in 1808, was measured at 55 feet long. So if it was a basking shark,
it would
then
be
it
way
was
longer before it
15
decomposed.
feet longer than the biggest one ever recorded. So could the Stronsay beast have been a regular basking shark? You know, it leads many to speculate that it may have been either an insanely gigantic specimen or maybe a previously unknown species of giant shark. If you want to read more about these monsters, because there's so much more little tidbits and stuff, I super recommend reading The Beasts That Hide from Man, Seeking the World's Last Undiscovered Animals by Carl Schucker. I got some nice little bits of information from that book, and it's got loads of cool like cryptozoology tales in there and historical sightings and stuff, so I super recommend it for some bedtime reading.
Now I'm just worried about plesiosaurs in the water. I've told you, but I grew up in a peninsula in southeastern shore, Maryland, in a city named Salisbury. I also lived in Princess Anne, which is in Somerset County, but I grew up a lot in Wacomico County. And we're surrounded, there's not too far to get to a beach, the river's everywhere. And growing up on the Chesapeake Bay, a lot of my field trips included lots of bay adventures. And Maryland's pretty much a swamp. No one's talking about it, but it's the truth. We're all swampy people. Wetlands is what they call it. It's classier than a swamp, I guess.
But the main thing I know about Chesapeake Bay are the dogs.
Yes,
and they're like
Chesapeake retrievers
that love swimming.
Yep, and they're specific. Like a lot of them do like duck hunting, and we're also really into mallards. We've got a whole. We had a whole museum just for like mallard carvings and pictures of ducks.
Ducks and dogs.
Yeah, it's really one of those places. It slows down out there. It's Dick Cheney used to live on the Chesapeake Bay. He was out shooting his friends out there. It's just one of those places, like, I grew up on the water kind of thing, and my friend, one of my best friends, her dad was a crabber and things like that. And we used to take a lot of adventures, so I always, used to, imagine what kind of creatures were out there. And because we have, like, both saltwater and freshwater and brackish water But one thing, I'm not sure, I think you vaguely knew about it. Maybe. We're going to find out. So basically, you know how Scotland has the Loch Ness Monster?
Yeah.
Well, the Chesapeake Bay has our own monster, and it's called Chessie. We also have a manatee that visits the Chesapeake Bay. They call her Chessie as well.
Oh, sweet.
But yeah, I don't think they spotted her in years, but she used to visit for like 3 years in a row. This crazy manatee just chilling out in the bay. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm basically stealing this from Bay Weekly, letting us Marylanders know what's up, happening in the bay, advertising small dog shelters, So check out Bay Weekly. This is basically taken from an article from 2017 where they've done a really good job of compiling everything. So yeah, this is a fairly new story. It's by Chris Gardner. So after 22 years, the Chesapeake Bay monster is spotted anew. The following is an account, and this is written from his perspective, of my strange sighting. For what it's worth, I swear on my life, it is without exaggeration. And we Marylanders would never exaggerate. So, my friend Dave and I frequently park my car on the side of Arundel Beach Road, whoop whoop, and admire the view of the Manatee River. I'm not from this area. Okay. I recognize what Arundel is because they always used to get more snow days than we did. Fuck you, Arundel. All right. While chatting and eating McDonald's, so very American. I want McDonald's. We are down at the location a few nights a week and have been for the past 2 years. Dave even longer. The early morning hours of August 5th, 2014 showed us a sight I could not explain. In the passenger seat of a car parked just 1 foot from the water, I was at the window facing the water. Just before 1:40 a.m., I noticed the tide was really high and beginning to touch the underside of the docks and the surrounding properties. The next moment, less than 5 feet away, I saw a long, snake-like creature slithering through the water with a serpentine motion. This creature was at least 20 feet long. I'd say 25 feet if it had been straight rather than curving in its motion. It did not rise completely out of the water. However, its head and tail, or close to the tail, breached the surface with the rest of the body in between just submerged. In the low light, it was hard to tell if it had scales or leathery skin, but the color looked glossy, dark black. "Look out my window," I whispered to Dave. What it was we saw, he had no more idea than I. First, I wondered if it was 2 separate animals traveling in a line, but the water flow it created as it slithered along in a slow walking pace told me it was one continuous creature. The disturbance in the water was an unbroken and continuous form. I have seen water moccasins, also very terrifying to live with, dangerous snakes in general, and in the water. I have seen water moccasins swimming through rivers, but this creature was much, much longer. Its head flared out ever so slightly in an almost slender football shape. Picture an abnormally long king cobra with its hood flared and head and tail floating on the surface of the water. To the best of my knowledge, there are no stakes in the Chesapeake Bay that are close to being that long, let alone hooded like a king cobra. We observed this creature for about a minute and a half before it moved slowly upriver in a northwesterly direction along the edge of the nearby docks. Then it disappeared into the darkness. Can I prove it? I was so busy trying to figure out what the hell I was looking at that I didn't think to take a picture with my phone, which was in my pocket. When I searched Chessie online, what I found on Maryland Department of Natural Resources website matched my description to the letter. If Chessie is not an unknown species, I think not too far-fetched is the theory that it's a South American anaconda descended from others escaping from the 18th and 19th century sailing ships. Which is a thing that happens a lot.
Yeah.
Like, so many, like, the reason why Assateague and Chincoteague, you know, the reason why Assateague Island has so many horses is because a boat wrecked, and against all odds, this horses swam to shore. So, good job, animals. So, still what I saw was extremely long and one continuous creature. When I called the Department of Natural Resources to report I saw Chessie, to my surprise, the first person I spoke with didn't laugh. Then I talked to Joe. Yeah, they've heard this before. Then I talked to Joe Evans, who was very intrigued with my story, but disheartened by my lack of a photo. He told me to snap a picture and call him back if I see Chessie again. That sounds to me like he's saying, like, yeah, if you can provide me fake proof, I'll run a story or something. I don't know. I can read into whatever. I have seen Chessie and become a believer. At the same time, I have gained new understanding for those who claim to see something spectacular, but have no photographic evidence. So, I have a list of Chessie spottings, and there's actually a video on YouTube of a supposed camera crew interviewing, like, doing an interview or whatever. And the cameraman totally pans away to look at this creature, and it could be very much staged, but it's an interesting video, so have fun with that. But I don't know if that's included in this. Also, there's a cute thing for April 1st. I think it was the Maryland State Police Department or something like that, or some kind of official department claimed to have, like, taken care of Chessie and, like, removed them from the Chesapeake Bay. It was cute. So, 1936. Aberdeen Proving Ground military helicopter pilot reports seeing something big and reptilian writhing around in a restricted sector of the Bush River.
Like a snaky kind of thing.
Big and reptilian, writhing around. The 80s were the decade of Chessie, with 78 sightings reported between 82 and 88. Many in response to the first videotape of Chessie and a subsequent Smithsonian conference on sightings. July 30th, 1980. 3 smooth, slightly triangular, dark, thick humps, evenly spaced across the water's surface, observed by Laura and Norris Perry, and guests 25 feet from the Olmsted Estate dock on the Magathie River. After a few seconds, it submerged. Length estimated at 20 to 30 feet. Head snake-like. I swear it's probably Magathie. Don't shout at me, Marylanders. I'm doing the best I can. I've been in Britain and they've changed me.
I'm just thinking, like, if it's an anaconda-y thing. Anacondas are swimmers, right? So, like...
They don't give a fuck. They're jungle creatures. They'll
swim and along and stuff and...
I don't know. I'm not a snake expert. I know we probably have some snake expert listeners. So, let us know.
I feel like anacondas could swim.
Yeah. I feel like they ought to. If they, like, I imagine they're from a jungle environment, and they better
I've only ever seen, like,
Haven't you seen the fucking
I've seen the stuff
Anaconda
eating,
film?
Like...
Have you seen Anaconda with Jennifer Lopez?
No, I avoided that.
They totally swim. Oh my god, it's such a good movie. No, for, like, how bad it is, you have to watch it. It makes, like, it's actually really good. We're gonna have movie night at some point. Okay. August 13th, 1980. An unusual creature briefly seen in the Prospect Bay area of Eastern Bay by Rosamund Hayes of Alexandria. September 7th, 1980. A large, strange, and awesome thing. Awesome. That was certainly no manatee sighted near the Bay Bridge Tunnel by Bob White Sr. of Virginia Beach. The head 4 feet out of the water was followed by a body that extended 15 to 20 feet from the starboard side of his boat, 10 to 12 feet on the port side as he passed over it. A few days later, September 13, 1980, unidentifiable creatures seen by Kent Islanders sailing in the Eastern Bay. So pretty close.
Mm.
A few days later, September 17th, Burton reports the Guthrie sighting in a front-page story for the Baltimore Evening Sun. A 5-second glimpse of about 12 feet of a bluish-gray serpent creature reported by Linda Worthington from a second-story window above the Gunpowder River. Definitely something alive. It had a hump and made a big wake. Memorial Day, 1982, so a few months later. Actually, not too long later. Chessie is videotaped near the Bay Bridge by Bob and Karen Frew. The grainy black and white tape broadcast on WJZ-TV. July 1982.
WJZ-TV sounds like
My old
it's very
locals.
American.
My old locals were WMDT 47 and WBOC. The fact that I still know that is worrying. Even though WMDT was the more budget one, it was more fun to watch because they were more budget.
Budget TV is the best. It's so much more
WBOC was
entertaining.
just, they had their act together. It was better than a college production. It's local news, so it's not like it's amazing. But they had all the clean cut people and they were nice. But WMDT would sometimes, I don't know, like, it was just more interesting. It's the one with the weatherman that stole my cat. We'll talk about that some other time. Yeah, he was on the budget one. So, July 1982, the sea creature spotted a few miles from the Frew sighting by Clyde. So this is a few miles later, 1982, July. Animate but unidentifiable, concludes Smithsonian Institution scientists after a conference of Chessie sighters. So they bring everyone in and they tell them to, tell us what you saw. And they're like, we don't know. Reports bring out accounts of new and earlier sightings. Many who previously declined to confess sights for fear of ridicule decided to help piece together the puzzle. So they're basically putting together all the dates they've seen and, like, it's matching the fuck up with locations and random people seeing it as it's traveling. Many Chessie watchers were experienced observers. Among them were Navy and Coast Guard officers, commercial fishermen, captains, people of all walks of life who either lived on the water or cruised the bay and its tributaries, including both an FBI and CIA agent. Saw the fucking monster.
That's your proof.
October 1st, 1982. Something with 3 humps seen by Dr. Tom Wilson of Bethesda while blue fishing 1.5 miles south of the Bay Bridge. October 3rd. A 7-humped creature 12 to 18 inches in diameter, briefly spotted by Bob Hannigan of Ellicott City, then leaving Rock Hall. And a couple more in 82. What appeared to be the head of an animal held up by a stick, moving toward Elk River. At the head of the bay, seen by Frederick Littleton, a boat shop owner from Wayne, Pennsylvania, I think. Binoculars revealed a brownish, wart-covered head as large as a football, 2 bulges where its eyes should be, and a tapered snout that dipped into the water as it swam. And a swift object with humps moving in unison topped by an animal-like head seen by Ernest Bill Huber at the South River above Riva. So all of a sudden, rather than being described as an animal, it's being described as an object with like...
Yeah, like... From what starts out to sound just like people are saying a big snake, that people think is a snake as well. That's their first explanation of it, is a big snake. And now it's like got tapered face and warts and like starting to sound more like a dragon-y thing than a snake.
October 1983. So it's been a little bit. On a clear, windless morning, Baltimorean John Hoffman and friend Ruben Rubaya had a shock while fishing. From Hoffman, the only person Burton knew beforehand, came the most believable and vivid account of a Chessie sighting. Water was like a mirror, rippled only by numerous patches of small schools of bluefish chasing bait fish and gulls diving to snatch the bait fish. Burton reported from their account. Until they reached Holland Point above Chesapeake Beach, it was eerie, Hoffman told Burton. We looked down from the flying bridge and saw a wake going across the bow. At first, we thought it was a telephone pole. Then we realized it was moving. There were 20 to 25 feet of it visible, and it wasn't propelling itself sideways like a snake. Instead, there was vertical movement like a serpent. As it got 50 feet off the bow, it was moving fast enough that its wake was 6 to 8 inches high, and right where some of the blues had been. I didn't see a head, just the tail part, but that was big enough. Its wake was like that turned over by water skis. I didn't want to speed up for fear of spooking it or hitting it, but we got a perfectly good look from the fly bridge, and I'm sure we saw Chessie. All right, March and May, 85. 600 feet from his home on the East River in Matthews, Virginia, Bill Reese saw Chessie's snake-like head. She swam with vertical humps, was a foot in diameter, 20 feet long, and greenish-brown. On hearing Bill's story, his wife confessed a similar sighting she hadn't mentioned for fear of being suspected of losing her mind. Rising again at sunup, a couple months later, Reese saw a smaller Chessie about 10 feet closer. He got within 30 feet of it, but each time he approached, the creature would dive and resurface 50 feet away. Unlike other Chessie, this one swam horizontally like a snake, not with humps rising above the water. No more sightings after the disappearance of 7 resident mallards. Summer 92. A serpent's head and humps reported by sailors near Smith Point. 93 to 97, no credible sightings. Has she moved on? Sought new hunting grounds? Or was she so intimidated by encounters with humans that she chose seclusion on the floor of the deepest halls of the Chesapeake? Chessie is dead, according to Baltimore City paper front page speculation in 93. However, we're going to look at this comment submitted on this article in Bay Weekly.
Okay.
Where someone claims to have seen Chessie in 85 as well. September 1985, second week of the month, on a sunny, clear Tuesday afternoon. Myself and high school friend had met a few days earlier in a local mall, some peak mall days, and decided to go fishing on his boat. We met at the Willoughby public boat ramp near the Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel. After launching and motoring out to Fort Wool near the South Island of HRBT, we began drift fishing for flounder. Oh, flounder on toast as breakfast is the best breakfast. A short while later, Violet's face, short while later, we noticed a large hump rise out of the water near the Fort Wool Island rocks, in a swirling eddy where trash was floating on the water. We were puzzled as to what it could be. No fins, maybe 6 to 8 foot hump visible. About 5 to 10 minutes later, it resurfaced about 75 feet out in the channel. We could see an 8 foot high neck and a lizard-like head looking away toward the northeast. It submerged. About 5 to 10 minutes later, again, my friend shouted. I look up, and his rod was bent over double, moving from my right to left. Suddenly, this huge beast rode out of the water, long, slender neck, serpent-like head, 2 large diamond-shaped flippers front, and thrust both flippers simultaneously with several great thrusts. In shock, panic took over. The boat rocked violently from the water displacement when the creature rose 10 to 15 feet behind our boat. I lurched forward to get the anchor, which wasn't even down. My friend hastily pulled the starter cord to start the motor. It kicked over and we raced away. The creature quickly submerged after 3 quick thrusts of those diamond-shaped flippers. We raced toward the Ocean View Beach shoreline, stopping about 50 feet offshore. My friend looked at me and said, we should report this. I said, no way, can't you see what would be said the next time you go to court with a defendant? His lawyer would say, Your Honor, I would just ask one question to the officer. Is it true you've seen a living dinosaur? Our careers would be over. 2 large helicopters were pulling anti-submarine mine detection sleds, one about 1 mile east of us, and one in Willow Bay during this incident.
So this guy's claiming that basically the military or whatever disturbed a plesiosaur that was living in the bottom of
probably. I think that's what he's subtly hinting at the end of that.
It's kind of a leap from we were going from big snake in the river to brown warty dragons.
And it's a 1985 sighting.
And now we end up with a plesiosaur that's been disturbed. Like the plot of a budget sea monster movie.
There aren't so many pictures of Chessie as there are of the Loch Ness monster. But isn't Loch Ness it's a huge lake, isn't it? But it's a lake.
So loch.
Yeah, a loch. Yeah. Whereas the bay is a huge environment.
Oh god,
and
it's a very believable. I'm impressed by the number of sightings
crazy.
of
they
Chessie.
went Chessie mad.
Yeah, I can actually see in my mind the grainy 70s-y photo of the blue water with this little black net. It does look like a kind of tiny Loch Ness monster.
There are some Chessie photos as well out there
of Chessie.
But yeah, it's always fascinated me. It's one of those things that I almost forgot till we brought up sea creatures, and I was like, oh my god, I have the perfect thing. Of course.
One I love that we'll have to touch on at some point is that one that looks like a giant tadpole, and there's photos of it. Do you know what I'm on about?
I don't know.
It's I can't remember the name, but it's a brilliant sea monster photo anyway.
Wow. We definitely will revisit, like, a lot of the topics we do, we're definitely going to have to revisit to do more stuff, because there's so much on it. But yeah, just the idea that the Chesapeake Bay, it's sort of become a mascot for the bay. It's sort of, and it's still relevant today. Like, this article is from 2017. It's not that long ago. It's still one of those things that captures people's imaginations on Chesapeake Bay.
It's very much the American Nessie. Like,
yeah, it totally is.
You know,
it's our baby.
They got Chessie freaking key rings and t-shirts and
people dressing up as their for the fairy festivals that I used to go to. But yeah, I'd like to believe Chessie's out there. I've never seen Chessie myself. I've been around the bay.
I mean, I just love it, even if it is just a really big anaconda that got released or freaking escaped.
Yeah,
or whatever.
that's the thing.
That would still be super cool. I like the idea of a huge anaconda like going around eating stuff in the bay. There.
Yeah. The theories are manatee, anaconda, like the snakes. Like the people don't know because too many people like saw it, and there have been sightings. So even though there was this rush of sightings in the 80s, there were sightings way before that. So I think it's unfair for the Baltimore Sun to say that Chessie's dead. Don't speculate that Chessie's dead. No, because there were sightings in the 30s. There have probably been older sightings that no one wanted to talk about.
I mean, there could be a whole population of anacondas breeding and living in the bay.
Yeah, or is it some kind of human reaction to the fact that we're destroying our own environment in Maryland and we have to build a mascot to make us give a shit? Like, save Chessie or else, you know.
Yeah, don't mess with the bay, don't tip tons of toxic sludge in the bay because you might
so
kill
many
Nessie
states are
and
fucked
Chessie.
if the bay gets polluted. We really, really, really need to save the bay. .org.
Okay, I hope you enjoyed our little sea monster light tales today. We learnt about globsters that look like plesiosaurs. That could be the verdict's still out. They could be giant unknown sharks, a giant unknown species of shark. So, Cassie, what's your verdict on sea monsters?
I totally believe in sea monsters. Don't get me started. I've always believed in giant squids, and more evidence comes out all the time. The thing is about squids is the beaks. So these huge beaks are being found. I believe in them. I believe in water dragons. I'm not gonna lie. I totally buy it all. Like, I really do think there's so much we don't know. And they're finding these creatures that can survive in temperatures that they just are unfathomable for us. So, of course, yeah.
I mean, for me, I have to agree with you. Giant squids and the story of the kind of slow acceptance and discovery of giant squids gives me hope that there are other, like, gigantic things unknown to us, like living deep in the sea. Because, I mean, like, history was, like, full of reports of giant squids, and giant squids got stranded.
Crazy sailors.
But no one managed to film one alive until, like, 2001. I mean, it literally felt like it happened in my lifetime, like, in the early 2000s. I was like...
Yes, I loved it.
Because people still didn't believe, couldn't totally believe, even though we had actual specimens and washed up, and all of these tales of the, like, 16th or 17th century or something of people literally reporting word for word a giant squid that they saw in the sea. And
ships going down because
ships getting attacked, boats getting attacked. We'll probably have to touch on giant squids in another episode at some point, because there's so much cool stuff to go into, and so many other sea monster stories. But yeah, giant squids totally give me hope. And even the fish, the coelacanth, is another one that people love because it really was like a living fossil. I mean, they've now... they've proved that it has actually kind of evolved a little bit, that it is still evolving. Kind of, you don't really get anything that can hang around for 66 million years and not change even a little bit. So apparently there is some, like, variation amongst them, and I think there's a couple of, like, subspecies or a couple of different coelacanths. But yeah, super interesting. If you don't know about them, I definitely recommend looking up because there's a wealth of information out there about like living fossil animals and giant squids. So we'll wrap stuff up. If you've ever encountered a sea monster,
please tell me.
Let us know. Maybe you are a fisherman and you've hauled up a globster.
Black guys like
you got some photos of it. Maybe you live on a submarine and like a gigantic unidentified object travelling at great speed, coming right at you, got picked up on your radar. Maybe you're a shark expert living on an offshore oil rig with a secret testing facility where you develop mutant sea creatures in the base. Have you got any suggestions of people that may want to email us?
Gosh, if you have any stories, like if you are from Maryland like myself and you want to give me some stories or yell at me about how to pronounce river names, you go ahead and email us world-wearypodcast@gmail.com.
World-weary.
Or tag us, tweet us. Find us on Instagram, world-wearypod.
We'll probably put things like photos that we've looked at in the recording and links to like books and articles and stuff. We'll put that on social media somewhere for you to be able to check out as well if you want to read up more on it.
Yeah. And I think if you're into cryptocurrency, I think my husband wants to set up our Twitter to receive weird crypto stuff, so we'll try it. Why not?
We'll let you know. Okay, thanks for listening, guys.